recording.
Great. All right. Let me pull up your questions here real quick.
I have questions.
You have questions. All right. I'm just going to do a little intro here for myself.
Okay.
Let me move this over to the side just a little bit. You don't
So
need
I
to
don't
speak.
breathe.
Yeah, you don't have to speak into it. I learned that the hard
Edit
way.
that out.
Yeah, you kind of put it sort of. All right. This is Jerry Bain from the. This is Jerry Bain podcasting from the NERComp 2009 conference in Providence, Rhode Island, and I'm here with Alexandra Pickett, Associate Director of the SUNYlearning. I'm here with Alexandra Pickett, Associate Director of the SUNY Learning Network for the SUNY System Administration, and she's going to be, or she just gave a presentation here at NERComp called Twitter Pated. I like that title. By Twitter and other web 2.0 technologies, using Twitter and other web 2.0 technologies for instructional purposes. And I'd like to start off by asking you, Twitter seems to be the darling online tool of the moment right now. Could you describe some of the uses Twitter has for higher education?
Sure. It's actually kind of weird right now to hear it sort of in mainstream, because it was sort of like this underground little gem for quite a long time. I've probably been in Twitter for close to 2 years now. I'd have to check that to be sure, but I think it's about that. And so it's weird to hear Jon Stewart mention it, and to hear, like, your average person talking about it, in the news or the media or whatever, not really getting it. I think for higher ed, that's an interesting question. I use it in my instruction. I teach a master's level online, fully online course, and I use it in my course as a news flash, and I'm able to generate some embed code and suck the course news announcements right directly onto my course homepage. And so there's not, in that particular course, there's not a lot of interaction, although there could be. But if I wanted there to be interaction, it seems I would need to direct that activity a little bit more with the students, because they didn't organically, spontaneously become mad Twitterers in my course, right? They pretty much just used it to keep themselves informed about what my announcements were in the course. And I used it for a couple of different reasons. I used it, one, because I could have used any number of things. I could have just posted my newsflash directly into my course, but I wanted to explore its instructional potential, number one. I wanted to embellish my course in a way, and the little embed widget that I got, you can customize the color, and it's kind of slick and 3D looking a little bit. And I wanted to experiment with ways to enhance the engagement with the content of the course. And so by making it a little bit more visually appealing than just straight text, I feel like I can achieve that with that particular functionality or aspect of Twitter. I also did it, one of the things about it is its ease of use. So I can be anywhere and post stuff to Twitter. So I can do it from any, from a phone, I can do it from my laptop, I can do it from within the course, I can do it, so it gives me a lot of flexibility and a lot of options. And one of the reasons why I do a news flash, just in general, regardless of whether it's in Twitter or not, is to demonstrate teaching presence to the students, so that they see that I am in the course and feel my presence in the course. And so I change that little news flash regularly. It's also a social presence thing, so that they can get a sense that I really am a real person, and that I'm interacting in the course and present in the course. It also allows me to aggregate in a chronological order the posts that I make to it. And so if a student were to miss one, for example, they could go to the Twitter feed for the class and see the aggregated list of all of the Twitters. Now I could do that manually, like, I could copy and paste each of the each of my news flashes into a document and maintain it in my course. This is just easier. And so one of the criteria that I use for evaluating whether or not a tool is good or useful or whatever is if it allows me to do something better, faster, safer, easier, or cheaper. And in this particular case, it allowed me to do stuff better because of the visual appeal of it, in my opinion, and then faster because of its ease of use and kind of ubiquitous access, and easier. So anyway, it met a couple of the different criteria. So from my perspective, it was successful at being that newsflash little utility.
Mm-hmm. What are some other online tools that you're interested in using?
Well, in this particular course, it's a master's level course, a beginning online instruction course. And so the students in there, the main project of the course is to develop an online course themselves. But part of what I do as an educator and a lifelong learner myself is to explore technology for instructional purposes. And because of the nature of the course I teach, I also feel obliged to engage my students in my learning process and to demonstrate to them that I am a learner too, and that they are participating with me in my learning as I am participating with them with their learning. So we are in a community together, and I am the instructor for the course, but I also have this other role where I am a learner myself, and part of my expectation in the course is for them to give me feedback on how the course is going for them, and to tell me how, what their experiences are in the things that I'm having them do, and also for them to teach me stuff. So it becomes really like Etienne Wenger sort of theorized, a true community of practice. There are experts in the class. There was a student who was a professor of physics, of biology, myself as the instructor for the course, and there are novices, people who are just coming into learning how to be teachers. So we had the opportunity in that class to all demonstrate teaching presence in various capacities from various perspectives. And really, my effort in a student-centered, building a student-centered learning environment is to cultivate that sense among the students, and so that they know and understand that we are all learning, and and I want to engage them in that process, and so that they in turn will do that with their students.
What would you consider, the term Web 2.0 has been bandied about quite a bit in the last couple of years. I'm wondering what you consider the essence of Web 2.0 to be.
That's an interesting question, because there are, Tim O'Reilly's classic definition of Web 2.0, and there are a number of URLs. I showed two of them in my presentation today. One is called the Go-To Web, and the other one, what was that one called? The other one is called The World of Web 2.0, and it shows an image, a flattened image of the world that looks like a map, but then when you mouse over it, little things pop up, and they're little Web 2.0 tools. It's very slick looking. So, there's all these tools out there and it seems like there's millions of them, and there's more and more of them every day. So there's more that die every day. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like this never-ending source of cool tools that are out there. I think the thing that distinguishes something from a Web 2.0 tool from a cool tool is that there is an element of user-generated content and social media or networking involved. And so, you can have, bookmarks, but when you add the element of being able to vote on them, or if you add the element of being able to friend people and share bookmarks, that's what makes it Web 2.0 in my opinion.
It seems to really mirror what you were talking about your class, having the students teach you something as well as you teach them. It's about interaction.
That's
right. It seems to mirror that a lot.
Yeah.
How do students and faculty benefit from these tools in regard to, if you're using these tools, do you still give sort of traditional tests, or is there a different means of assessment when you have a student-centered course?
Well, because I teach entirely online, that is a certain, you have certain options and certain limitations in an online classroom that are different from the options and limitations of a four-walled classroom. One's not better than the other, or it's just different. And so in an online classroom, giving a multiple choice test that's worth 50% of the grade at the end of the course does not make a lot of sense. It's not an authentic evaluation of if the student learned or what they learned. And so you do have to reconceptualize what you're trying to achieve for the fully online teaching and learning environment. We could have another discussion about whether or not multiple choice tests are authentic ways of assessing learning in general, but that's another show. So when I talk with faculty, I like to challenge them to think outside the box and to try and think about the options and limitations of the environment that they're using, and to leverage those to allow them to achieve their objectives in an authentic manner. And so for myself personally, I don't use tests or quizzes, and I don't believe in them for what I do. Now, obviously I want, if I have a surgeon and he's learned how to be a surgeon online, at some point or another, I hope he took some tests, and I hope that he got in front of somebody and showed that he can actually cut people without killing them. So, yeah, I'm not saying, you know what I'm not saying yet.
Right, exactly.
So it's just in my particular field and for my particular purposes, and in general, I would say that my challenge to faculty in faculty development is to get them to consider the possibility that there are ways to assess learning and achievement in a course that does not involve a test. Now again, there may be reasons.
Well, what are some of those ways to assess without a test?
Well, for example, in an online course, your presence is measured by your interaction. If you do not post in a course, then you are essentially absent from that course. You could be lurking, but it's not a self-paced course, or at least the ones that I teach are not, and the ones that I advocate for teaching are not. It's a cohort, it's instructor-led, there's a start point, there's an end point, and there's a focus on interaction with the content, interaction with the instructor, and interaction between the students, right? And so if interaction is the sort of the meat of the course, then you need to devise ways to design activities that engage the students in directed learning interactions and collaborative work, and to then give them feedback on how they're doing. So for example, in my course, for discussions, which I don't like calling them discussions because really what they are interactions, and when you're talking to a math professor or to a physics professor and you say discussions or math, they're thinking, what? We don't discuss math, you know what I mean? But the truth is you can have interactions about math content or about math problems or about physics problems. You can have interactions about that content. And so I like the word interaction better than discussion. So in my interactions, I provide the students with a rubric so that they understand what I'm looking for in terms of their contributions to the class. And it's not just quantitative, it's qualitative. I'm looking for the students to be able to express teaching presence in the course. And this is teaching presence based on the work of Garrison from Athabasca University in the Community of Inquiry model. I want the students to be able to present their ideas or their opinions or their conclusions or their refutations, and to not just, tell me about what I have been talking about, but to tell me something new, and not just me, to tell the others in the class. If we are really a community of learners in the class, then each of us functions with teaching presence in the class and can inform and influence the opinions and the interactions of every other person in the course. So the criteria that I use to evaluate their interactions involves the quality of their teaching, the way that they express teaching presence in the course. And that will be presenting an idea that hasn't been presented yet, and citing that idea with references, and informing that discussion well, so it's not just a statement. It includes questions, and it includes questions that further the conversation, don't stop it. And it also includes, and I think this is kind of unique, the subject line as part of the instructional tool of each post. And so each discussion post becomes like a little mini quiz question, right? And I look at how well formed, according to my rubric, the subject line is. It needs to be a synthesis of their post. So they're actually doing critical thinking to summarize their post from that subject line, so that I, looking at a glance at the subject lines, can learn something. Not only I, but the whole class. It is my objective for everyone to be able to get that. And then the content of their post, the actual post itself, I evaluate on a 4-point scale. And I look for, is it well written? Does it, move the conversation forward? Is it engaging? Is it sharing something that hasn't been talked about yet in the class? Is it well cited, and so forth?
Oh, that's cool. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add about your session today? Some of the takeaways that you felt like you talked about?
Well, it was a really engaged group, and it was a very large group. I didn't count, but there were lots of people there, and I was so thrilled that people were interested in talking about what I have a great deal of enthusiasm and passion for. And part of the purpose of the session was to demonstrate, show them how I use, and I only talked about like maybe 5 of the tools that I use, and to get them to try something out, to try on the idea that maybe this or some other tool might assist them in their own instruction or in their own professional development to do something better, faster, safer, easier, or cheaper. And I found them, very interested and very engaged, and so it was a very good session. One of the things that came out during the session was a little bit of a discussion on where the professional and the personal blur and meet up, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately because it's been happening to me.
I've been thinking about that a lot lately too.
Well, I don't know, maybe it's like a phenomenon that's happening to everybody right now, but when I started out exploring web2.0 and the social web, I started out from a professional perspective. I Twittered professionally. I first started out documenting my journey in web2.0, so it was just a chronology. I'm looking at this tool. I like this, I don't like this. It was like a journal of my journey. I then started finding people I was interested in and following them and listening to them, and I continued to learn. That's what helped me actually move forward on my journey. I then started getting to know what people were experts in, and then as I went through life, if I had a particular question, I might actually individually single somebody out and ask them for more information or whatever, and then I started developing relationships, and I started meeting other people at Twitter at conferences, or never meeting some of them and just knowing them through Twitter, or through other mechanisms like CSNIC or Facebook, or some of the other tools that are out there. So, but what happened to me, maybe it's been in the last 6 months or so, is that people that I know from my personal life have found me online because I'm kind of out there a lot everywhere. Sure. And my, friends from high school that I haven't thought about or seen in a million years have friended me in Facebook. And I was a little shocked at first. I think the first one was a friend from college that I sort of knew, you know. And it was interesting because it's like, oh, wow, dude, who are you today? You know what I mean? I remember you. And it was interesting to kind of follow their streams and see what they were up to and what their life was like. And you can sort of, you know, vicariously, it's sort of like peeping into someone's life and getting a sense of who they are today. And it was nice and satisfying and low, you know, energy, because I didn't really have to interact with them. I could just sort of like voyeuristically look in every once in a while and see what they're doing and who they are. And then little by little, more people found me. My cousins from Colombia and my cousins' children that I don't know really very well have found me, you know, and people that I kind of care about have found me, and personally, you know, and so little by little, and there have been some fun little experiments in Facebook recently. There was the 25 cool things about you kind of thing, and of course I got tagged at some point, and that, I did it, and it was a really fun exercise to read other people's, you know, friends as well as professional colleagues, to read how they represented themselves.
That's so funny because I refused to do it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I loved doing it. I loved doing it myself, and I loved reading everybody else's because it gave me this sense, and I'll get to my point here in a second. And
yeah, I've got a meeting in 2 minutes, just so you know.
It gave me this sense that people are multidimensional. And that I am not just what I do. And I know this because in all of my profiles, I know this internally, because I always say I am Isa's mom first, I'm an artist second, and I know a little bit about teaching and learning online. But I didn't express that in the social web. You know what I mean? Until recently. And now, and it's funny because even in my class, I made very strong efforts to let them know that I was a person too, you know what I mean? I would videotape myself with my hair all messy, and I would, you know, do it extemporaneously, and all my ums were in there, you know what I mean? I wanted them to see me as a real person, to build some of that social presence and that trust, right? So anyway, this has just been happening for me, where I've realized that I want my digital persona to be multidimensional.
That's really interesting. I wish we had more time to talk about that, because I just Twittered about that, like yesterday.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately.
That's cool.
So.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, Jerry.
Alexandra Pickett, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye.
But yeah, no, it's weird because I have some people from, like, you know, I've met from conferences that have friended me on Facebook. I've got really close personal friends that have friended me, and sometimes I feel like, do I need two faces? You know, do I need my professional face and then my, you know, little bit more out there personal face? Can I make those two into one? You know, I don't know where the balance is.
Well, I've been thinking about that a lot, and my gut is telling me,
just be who you are.
I am who I am, and I swear I can't spell. You know what I mean? And
I think
people are going to have to get over it.
I think that's a real act of bravery, and I'd like to do that too.
I just can't compartmentalize myself to think that I have to maintain two Facebooks.
I feel like I've been trying to compartmentalize myself.
And the truth is, we are multidimensional beings.
Absolutely.
And part of what makes me unique, and part of what makes me interesting, and I would say this of anybody, not just me, is that we are multidimensional. And how we choose to present ourselves digitally, you know, our digital persona, that has presence, you know what I mean? And I don't want it to be mono-dimensional, one-dimensional.
You're
That's
absolutely
not
right.
who I am.
You're absolutely right, and that sort of inspires me to sort of just be who I am. Because I've got, like, I'm an artist too. I'm a musician. And I've got like tons of YouTube songs that I've recorded, and you know, sometimes like, should I show people this, or you know? So you just gotta be who you are.
Oh,
right?
good.
Bye.
Thanks, Jerry Bain from Educause.